Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Ben, Alonso getting caught up on The Americans, episodes 10 and 11 of season 4, Munchkins and 7 for dinner. Big news this week, by the way, was announced that we're getting 2 more seasons of The Americans, which will be the final 2 seasons, which is great because it's always good when shows know when to end, and they're giving themselves a nice long trajectory to land this plane. So
a full 13 episode season 5, and then a mostly full 10 episode season 6. So cool. 23 episodes after this year, and that's enough. And you know, obviously, you know, good shows you want to see them go as long as possible. And it's not, if the Americans went 7 or 8 seasons, I'd watch it.
Sure, of course.
It's hard to imagine. I mean, they seem close to a breaking point now, where either they make a deal and go into the witness protection program and live in the United States, or leave for Russia, or are killed. You know? Yeah,
I mean, and it's,
or spend the rest of their life in an American prison.
And it's, are they going to get caught, or are they going to sort of personally implode? You know,
right,
just because of all the stakes that they're having to juggle all the time. I guess, yeah. Starting with you mentioned the dinner scene. The idea of, you know, Pastor Tim and his wife discovering that they're living next door to an FBI agent is like.
Yeah.
But it kind of brings to mind like all the directions this show can go in, which is like at some point Stan's going to figure out what's going on, or at some point, you know, we may be a thing where Philip and Elizabeth begin to doubt the mission. You know,
I think that already happened when Philip discovers that Gaad, that John Boy, has been killed.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think that is a suggestion of like, oh, wait a minute. You know, I mean, not that they've been 100% on board all along. Obviously, when the senator wanted to recruit Paige, there have been times where they have chafed against their instructions, but for the most part, they are down for what they signed up for.
And of course, the irony of them being frustrated, or that they're questioning the motives of the mission based on Gaad's murder, is that those guys did have no intention of hurting Gaad. They were going to try and recruit him, and then they were going to leave if he said no, or they were going to take him somewhere to talk, but they weren't going to kill him. Clearly, they were like, oops, yeah. So that would be ironic if that were the straw that broke the camel's back, since it was not the intent at all.
I'm sure stranger things have happened in geopolitics.
I'm sure they have, yeah. So, but we don't have to go chronologically, because that dinner was so incredibly tense, and the what it takes emotionally when Pastor Tim, played by Kelly O'Coin, says, "Really, you're an FBI agent," for Philip and Elizabeth to not make meaningful eye contact,
right?
Which would somehow, but Philip is like,
please
stop talking. Please stop talking.
I'm not hearing
anything. Stop talking, because he can't even look at his daughter. He can't do anything.
No.
He can't do anything. Yeah.
Well, and of course, you know, the Henry, the one person in the household who doesn't know the score. Oh, hey, come on in, join us for
plenty
dinner.
of food. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Henry, you poor dumb son of a bitch. You've done more damage than you know.
So, all right. So going back to last week, when Tim disappears in Ethiopia, and why am I keep forgetting the wife's name?
Alice.
Alice, of course, justifiably freaks out a bit and thinks that you know, they might have gone out of the way to eliminate him, not knowing obviously how close they came to, you know, like how close both Alice and Tim came to being on the hit list if they had gone to Epcot rather than contracted, you know, whatever glanders, you know. So she like threatens them with this tape.
Which may or may not be real. But it's interesting because like they haven't resolved it yet. Right.
Like it's sort of hung over everything. Like every time a new conversation starts with Tim, when Elizabeth is talking to him about her own problems with, you know, the Young Lee situation, you're like, are we talking about the tape? No, we're not going to talk about the tape yet. You know, so it's just it's hanging over everything, kind of like a shroud right now. And at some point, it's gonna come up, and they're gonna have to figure out the casual way to be like, yeah, could we get that back now? But they haven't gone there yet.
Right, and of course, because they can't steal it or kill the lawyer, because that would that's
a red flag.
Yeah, it's a red flag. So so maybe Elizabeth, what she says to Paige, like, hey, if it makes them feel better that they have it there somewhere, so be it.
Right, but then what if, like, you know, what if Alice dies in childbirth through, you know, complete natural, non-hinky circumstances? Does that get released? You know,
then they got to go. Then they have to run. You know, I mean, then they're prepared to run, or prepared to.
It seems weird to put all those eggs in that basket, you know, that now Alice holds the key to their entire like continued survival in the United States. That doesn't seem practical for them.
Right. No, it doesn't. But they told their daughter, and they'd lose their daughter. So that's what's keeping them.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I think they could just have the conversation with Alice and saying, "Look, we totally understand why you flipped out.
Yeah.
Now that everything's calmed down, can we have that trip
Right.
back?" You know,
Yeah.
That's what I'm sort of waiting to happen.
Right. But of course, that conversation could be the very thing that ruins the goodwill with Alice. Like, why do you want the tape back? Like, what are you planning? Right.
Well,
so I mean, I hear you. They probably will, but it is.
Yeah,
it's
there's
delicate.
there's not a lot of good.
Like sometimes the best solution, as much as you want to do something, is to do nothing and think. Most likely, she doesn't die in childbirth. Most likely, things just
or
proceed.
you know, they break into the lawyer's office and replace it with an identical tape that is blank.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's certainly a possibility. I love the sometimes. The show, there's like conversation, you're like, what are they talking about? And then you know, when they don't give you an immediate payoff. Like they trust you to sort of pay attention and hold on information. So you've got Oleg in bed with Not Nina, and
I like Not Nina.
Not Nina's great.
Yeah.
One day I'll learn her name. And talking about how he says, can you get me 60-year-old female computer expert who speaks English,
Yeah,
and then that kind of goes away. And then when they finally show up at Mr. Young Lee's work,
I forgot about that.
and I was thinking like, wait, that's not Margot Martindale. What? Who? Oh, she's the computer expert. Of course, I gotcha.
You remember
from The Leftovers.
From The Leftovers.
Yes.
Right. That's right. I couldn't be, but I totally forgot about that computer. But also, we got it with earlier when Oleg needed the pilot, and Not Nina says, I already got a pilot for another mission. It's because she's in charge of the biochem stuff. Which
Right.
Still why she needed the 60-year-old woman. And the pilot, as we know, Martha flew with the dead rat. With the dead rat. So a very nice moment, a human moment for Stan. I don't think he was playing him. He was
With
really
Martha's dad? Or?
No, with Oleg. I think he was
yeah.
legitimately. It's clearly going to work that Oleg, we know from Coming Attractions, and also we know just because, of course, they're not done talking.
Sure.
But that seemed legitimate. What did Stan do? Who did he kill? He killed.
I meant to read some recaps of this because I was thinking like, oh God, they're referring to stuff that I've totally forgotten about.
Right. No, he killed a Russian agent. He beat him to death. He had him locked up in a house, and he either beat him to death or ended up shooting him in the back of the head. I think he shot him in the back of the head.
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
Right,
Okay,
after Chris died, and so Stan recognizes that as a. It's funny how we forgot about that.
Yeah,
but
it's haunting Stan.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget about it either. I mean, he just killed him. And it was the kid. It was the young guy who worked.
Yes.
It wasn't even a high level.
Right. He was like the intern at the Residentura or something like that, like the new guy.
Right. He was getting credit at Moscow State. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. So Stan legitimately bothered by what he'd done to Nina and what he'd done to that guy, and was like, they want me to play you, and I don't feel like it. I do like you, and so, you know, if you want to come talk to me, great, but we're probably done.
Well, yeah, you know, it's like there's that conversation in To Kill a Mockingbird where they talk about how like lawyers can be on opposing sides but still be friends after the trial's over. You know, I'm sure that in the espionage community, you know, at some point you develop these weird relationships with your peers that have nothing to do with your sort of national affiliations, if only because they're the only other people around who completely get what you're going through.
That's
and
right.
You can talk to about over a drink or two.
Yeah, and they shared a love of the same woman.
Yeah,
and,
totally, yeah.
But good stuff there, of course, and both of them having different kinds of crisis of conscience.
Yeah.
I mean, Oleg clearly is also. So all of that really tense, and then of course we get this big finale, which that was it. It was an exciting scene and probably necessary for if we're going to move things along for Paige to get exposed to the lethality of her mother, even though it was justified in the world in which we live that those guys were going to hurt them and they're going to hurt the daughter. But it's going to be tough for Paige to believe we don't hurt anybody. We're just trying to promote world peace. When her mother grabbed the knife out of a guy's hand and stabbed him in the jugular.
That's the thing. Is like if somebody who is as good at the martial arts as Elizabeth is could have taken those two guys down without stabbing one of them in the neck.
And maybe it may have been
break some limbs. You know,
I couldn't quite. My guess is my guess is that if you were going to explain that away, first of all, I think you probably have to watch the scene again. Because, of course, when it's that happened that quick, something could go wrong. She may not have meant to stab him in the neck.
She grabs the hand and, like, you know, and again, that I'm sure in that gig, your instinct is, oh, you're coming at me with a knife? Well, then we're done.
Well, two things. One, there were two of them.
Yes.
So she's got to worry about somebody coming back around, and it's her daughter. And and the overtures they were going to make was that they were going to sexually assault her daughter.
Right.
So in that moment, maybe you're like, okay, I got to kill one of these guys at a bare minimum,
right?
And probably both, unless the other guy hadn't run away.
To make a statement,
right?
Yeah. No, I mean I get it.
But just not even make a statement, just pure.
I was kidding.
Yeah, right. But pure protection, right?
But no, I just think that, you know. But you're right. But now in front of Paige, that does sort of mess up the previous cover story, especially when there's always been this discussion about, like, we have to trust each other because we're all lying, and, you know, and so obviously, you know, that's going to raise up those questions.
And Paige's, you know, the couple. Paige's reaction was not, at least initially, oh man, Mom is so cool. It was, this is horrific. This is traumatic. You know, even if she later realizes those guys were.
Yeah, to see someone die in front of you, even if it's somebody who was attacking you, that's got to be a lot to take.
Such a nice, but also just, again, traumatic of your mom just killed somebody.
Yeah, exactly, at the hands of your own. And Elizabeth's also going through all of her own stuff with the Young Lee thing. She's clearly like this, you know, so I think maybe Meredith said, like, this is her Martha. You know,
that's right.
Like, that she's got a real emotional commitment to this woman. Like, she really felt a genuine friendship, and so she just feels super shitty having to do this. And this is a really complicated long con.
Really complicated. We didn't even know that. We didn't know the end result, and the end result is just to get in the office and search for codes.
Yeah, and so the only way to get him out of the office was to fake the death of the woman that he thought he got pregnant. Like, there's a lot of for this show, even for how these things get set up, there's a lot of moving pieces.
But
here.
you saw he was like, I can't leave you in the office, even under these circumstances. So they needed
an old lady who was a computer expert,
and then his massive guilt laid upon it. So.
Yeah,
again,
but how did they know that, like, somebody else wouldn't come in the office to keep an eye? Like, I don't know. It seems to me there was a lot left to chance on that one.
Yeah, that's right. Or why, you know, could he have said, let's go talk at what was Starbucks then? You know, we'll just step outside.
The IHOP.
We'll just step outside of the courtyard here.
Yeah,
that's true. That a lot of things could have gone wrong there. But I guess I thought we talked about it on the show, but we didn't do a review last week because we couldn't. People weren't here. But so maybe I just said this in my head. But Elizabeth's moment of asking Frank Langella to
have another way to do this.
To try another way to do that was her first break of cause commitment, I think, in the show. Like Philip she's been sensitive to Philip's issues.
Sure.
And she's supportive of him and understanding of it. But she was always like, that was a Philip move.
Yeah.
Find another way in.
Could we not?
Right. And here was her finally getting closer to where he is.
Yeah.
Of like, I think mostly what I want to do is save this family. And if we have to live in Havana to do that, or we have to go into the witness protection program and live in Peoria, Arizona, we can, maybe we do that.
Is there a Peoria?
There is a Peoria, Arizona.
Okay.
Just about 20 miles outside of Phoenix. Maybe more, 40 miles outside of Phoenix. But by the way,
I'm going back to Siberia, whatever we do.
It's by the way, I might take Siberia over Peoria, Arizona, and Peoria, Arizona feels like a community. I've been there that got built since 1997. Like it might have been nothing in 1983. So anyway, tense stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, and the show's so good, you referred to it that you know they give us stuff. We don't know people's motives. We don't know what's going on. I didn't know, and I've been very, you know, Kelly O'Coin, who plays Pastor Tim, of course, he's been on here, and he's one of my closest friends, and I never ask him for any information ahead. I have tiny pieces that I have not shared, but they've mostly passed, and they were largely fairly inconsequential. But I thought, well, first of all, I've thought all along that he was going to try to sleep with Paige. Like I thought, there was gonna be a creep, and that apparently
the hair screams that.
Yeah, but apparently that's not in the cards.
Okay,
I mean, apparently just by watching.
Yeah,
he hasn't revealed. I just look at it and think we're not.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like we're headed in that direction. But I thought when he came to see Elizabeth and Philip that he was making an overture to them to try to recruit them. Like he had been missing in Ethiopia. Maybe it turns out he got found by Americans who were connected to the CIA. If there's Soviet agents there, there might have, and that he had in a moment of, said, oh, thank God, what were you doing? You're working for the communists? No, I'm not working for the communists, but I know of 2 Russian spies.
In the D.C. area.
Because then when they had the dinner, Pastor Tim gave a look to Alice, like, go into the kitchen and talk to Elizabeth, and that was after Elizabeth talked to him, and I thought, like, they're going to try and get them to talk. She's ready to open up, and we'll be able to. I don't know. I didn't know. I thought, my God, Kelly has kept this from me. And then, but then it seems like now maybe Elizabeth is just actually using him as the closest she'll come to a therapist.
2 more seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
25 episodes left.
That's true. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, because like clearly Gabriel is there to be the sounding board for that kind of stuff.
Right, but he's like a worst therapist ever.
Well, yeah, totally. No, like I was like he's Peter Bogdanovich on The Sopranos.
Right, totally. He's like he's like, I understand you want to stop using heroin, so maybe just in the mornings.
So yeah, but I mean, at first I was like, really, Pastor Tim? I was like, well, yeah, who else though?
Right.
Again, it's like once somebody's under the umbrella of, well, this, so I guess we can talk about stuff now. He's somebody that she has one less thing to hide from.
Yeah. And then Paige saying to her, so is this like going to be forever with Pastor Tim and Alice? This lie? Do I have to lie forever?
Oh yeah, and just the notion of like, if this falls apart, what, we have to go to Russia? What? Like that never occurred to her. Like that was not that didn't go over well.
No, no, and now what? I mean, now she's, they again, part of the lie has been punctured. No, we help people to make the world a better, happier place, and sometimes
they
have to slash their carotid artery.
We joked before about how Henry doesn't ever get much to do, but I'm starting to see where they're laying him out as one of the ways that kids can respond to a fractured home life is to just be like, everything's great, and I'm just a Joe average kid, and things are nifty. And so I think that part of what we might have read as just being kind of like a half thought out character is genuinely a character who knows something is up. And rather than Paige, who like got investigatory and petulant and sort of search for things, that he is building a wall around himself to not even, doesn't want to know about it, doesn't want to find out about it, doesn't want to hear about it, and is just
that's what I did. That's really what I did. Well, my mom slept every night on the couch, and and I didn't get along with my mom, and it was just strange in our house. But that's exactly what I did. It was like, no, I love going home. Going home is the greatest. I don't want to sleep over. I love my house. I love my parents. Everything's fantastic. They love each other. They don't speak. But that's overrated. Their connection is so deep that words aren't necessary. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, look, what we know is that they haven't thought it through. Henry's not just a oblivious kid bumbling through life. Something is coming with Henry too. They've referred to it. When are you going to tell Henry? And so.
And his Pastor Tim is an FBI agent.
His what?
His Pastor Tim is an FBI agent.
His Pastor Tim is an FBI agent. So when he discovers something, he may tell Stan. I mean, the moment that Stan figures it out,
It's funny, I was Get TV? Do you watch this channel at all? It's all like super old stuff, like they show, like old, Judy Garland and Andy Williams, TV shows, and like the Merv Griffin show from like the 60s.
So really old.
Yeah,
not Rockford Files old.
Like 60s and 50s. Anyway, but they started rerunning Nanny and the Professor, which is I guess that's actually early 70s, but. There was that whole wave of shows, mainly in the 60s, that were like the people that had a secret, like Bewitched and My Favorite Martian and, even My Mother to the Car. Like it was this thing where there was something sort of magical / supernatural happening under your roof that you had to keep the neighbors from finding out about. And the Americans, in a weird way, is kind of an updated version of that show.
It is,
only instead of, witches and Martians, we're Russian spies.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I didn't think of shows that way in that way. That's interesting. Shows of that time in that way.
It's all post-McCarthy, I think.
Great stuff, as usual.
Yeah. Two more to go this season?
2 more this season, and then 2 more...
seasons.
2 more seasons. Thanks for watching, everybody. No, that